Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Lead Skill Show. I'm excited to have you all of here today. For the ones that have been listening to the podcast, my name is Oscar, and I'm going to be your host. On the Lead Skill Show, we like interviewing leaders in the accounting, taxes, bookkeeping, financial services space, and we have a great guest with us today. Cliff, thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Oscar. Pleasure to be here. Excited to just share my story. I know that that's kind of what you do on here is share stories about how people will get to where they're going and where they're trying to go next. And so I'm just excited to be able to hopefully be encouragement to somebody. But yeah, Cliff House, I'm an enrolled agent. I run my own small firm, and we are excited to continue to grow. And I'm third generation in my family doing this, and I'm sure we'll get more into that later, but yeah, super excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Cliff, and thank you for helping me with the introduction. I did forget to mention that. Part of the idea behind the podcast, right, is to share the entrepreneurial stories of people that have started their own businesses, the challenges, their objectives, their goals, everything, right, and then what's coming up next. So thank you for that, Cliff. And just, to get the ball rolling, can you tell us a little bit more about your company, what you guys do, and also what you do inside your company?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm the managing partner. So basically, I kind of run the show. And I started with that role in 2021. Obviously, I'm third generation. So my grandfather started in 1958. My dad joined him in the 80s. And so a long history there. So very kind of familiar with the space, but really in 21 is when I took over running things, and things are a lot different when you're the guy running things.
Definitely.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot more going on there. And so I've been doing that for a few years now, and excited because kind of changed a little bit of direction, and I'll go into more of the history later. But right now we focus on real estate investors and their tax situations and helping to be a resource and advise them and make sure that things are done so they can take care of advantage of opportunities tax-wise and avoid tax pitfalls and help them make better decisions as a business owner and a real estate investor. And so that's what we love to do right now.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And actually, you touched upon it a little bit right at the end, but what kind of companies or individuals or who are usually the clients that you serve or that look for your services?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the past, we've done a lot of just kind of whoever needs help. It's a very generalist. A lot of small business owners and individuals traditionally is what my father and grandfather helped with. Small business was their focus, small business owners. And in the 90s, so my father also was a computer software programmer, and he developed an accounting software for an MLM company that my mom was a part of.
Okay.
And that actually it overtook our business and became our main part of our business was servicing that software, developing that software, providing tech support for that software for thousands of people all over the country. And so that really became for about 20 years the main part of our business. We still did tax and accounting on the side for small businesses and individuals, but that kind of became the main part of our business. And then in 2020, that MLM company went under. So obviously no more need for that. Kind of pivoting back to our roots with the tax and accounting and small book of business. And when I came on board, it was like, okay, we're going to rebuild and refocus. Who are we going to be now that is behind us and changing our focus? And so I really wanted to go beyond being a generalist and just saying, yeah, I can help anybody. I wanted to really be able to say that this is what I know a lot about. This is what I do every day. And I can really be an expert in a certain area to be able to help people. I really found through looking at different industries and clients and different things that real estate was the tax book opens up a lot for real estate. So there's a lot there. And a lot of times general tax practitioners don't really know all the nuances behind it. It can get fairly in depth. And so I was like, okay, there's a lot to learn, and I love to learn. So just diving into that and seeing that there's a need for that and something that I really could sink my teeth into and get excited about. And when I would talk to real estate investors about that, they would perk up and be like, ooh, you know more about that than my guy does. And I'm like, oh, that's just seeing that was a need. And so really deciding, okay, that's what we want to do. We're going to shift our focus. We're going to focus now on that's who we want to serve. And just very exciting too, because like I said, I love to learn and I love to teach as well, and help educate and help people understand what's going on so they can make better decisions for themselves. And there's a lot of times where people get overwhelmed with taxes and they don't want to think about it. They don't want to know. They're like, just tell me, you do it and tell me where to sign, and like, I don't. And
yeah.
So, a lot of people, I start to explain it and they get overwhelmed. They're like, I don't know. And so I found that the opposite was true with real estate investors, because I start to explain it and they lean in and say, ooh, tell me more. They want to know, they want to understand, because they're really looking to play the game and they want to know how to play the game. And so really what I get excited about is saying, hey, you know what? What you do best. Look at real estate. You find the deals, renovate it, find the good, do all that stuff that you do really good. And I'll help you understand the tax side and be an advisor in that capacity. You don't have to understand the wiring behind the walls. I can show you where the light switches are so you know which things to flip. And just being able to be there, a lot of times they would complain that they ask a question and their tax guy takes 2 months to get back to them. And just seeing the need in that area of being able to have a relationship and be communicative and be an advisor on your team instead of just, hey, I'll see you next year when we file your tax return. And so that was really what kind of encouraged my shift into the focus of real estate investors. And so that was kind of my journey to get there.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And from everything that you said, I'm taking 2 or 3 things out of it in terms of the business started with your grandfather and it was accounting, right? The main focus was accounting. And then your dad came on board and then it pivoted to software and just giving the support to that software, right? And selling it, etc. And then you guys pivoted back to maybe not accounting, but more taxes, right? It's still in that kind of industry, right? Okay. So I think that's a very important thing, right? I think it's a very important part of entrepreneur's journey, especially one where, you're the third generation, where I think people need to understand that a lot of the times the original idea or the original service or even audience that you're serving might change.
Oh, yeah.
And then you need to pivot and start adapting to that if you want to stay alive and scale.
Yeah, and just be aware of those opportunities. Because like my dad, when he made that software, he was really just doing it for my mom. And it's like, hey, there's a better way to do this. I'm going to make you a little tool and make your life easier.
That's love. That's love. Hey, I'm going to build something, especially in the 80s, right? No AI, nothing. You were basically programming with BASIC, C++, and everything, prompting on MS-DOS. Wow, that's.
Yeah. And so he was like, I'm just going to do this because that's what he liked to do. And I'm going to make it easier because he was the one doing the work on the back end for her because she didn't know what to do. And he's like, I'm going to make this way easier. And so when he did that, all the other people that did what she did were like, can I have that? And that's kind of how it grew. And my dad was like, I guess I should make this into a business. I can sell it, And so that's kind of how it developed, being aware of those opportunities and saying, oh, okay, well, that's presenting itself. I can go that direction.
Yeah. And another, that's great, honestly, that it's literally a business that grew out of love. Mm-hmm. So that's amazing. The other part that you were talking about that caught my attention was when you were explaining how a lot of the people that you talked to, right? You were explaining taxes and people were like, whatever, just, tell me what it is and I'll sign it. But then you found your niche because you actually like explaining it, like people that like listening and understanding, right? So also there, I think it's very important to mention and highlight the fact that there's a big difference between people that are reactive, which I think most of us are, especially with taxes. A lot of the time, right? Oh, this is my tax bill. Okay. Yeah. We might do a little bit of planning during the year, right? We might have, like that little secondary, tertiary business account, right? Savings account just for taxes, but that's it. Yeah. Right? As opposed to people that are proactive, like real estate investors, where they want to maximize, whatever tax breaks they can have and know how to structure deals and when to, do deals in order to maximize their profitability and minimize their tax liability.
Yeah. They're like, let's play the game. Let's do it. And in order to play the game, you got to know the rules.
I love that. I think that's a great way of, that you like explaining, you like people that are listening and that are going to follow that and they're going to want to learn. Like that's the people that I want to work with. I think it's great that you found that, like that niche. Yeah. And before we move, forward, and I know the answer to this, but I would like you to talk about it a little bit, to our audience. Did you want to be an enrolled agent when you were growing up? Is that something that you always were like when you were little, like I dream of becoming an enrolled agent?
No.
Okay. Can you tell us a little of that story, please?
Not at all. No, I love that you bring that up because that is definitely, I never thought that I would be here, honestly, because obviously I grew up in a family of accountants. Okay. My grandfather, my father, like that's what we do, right? Yeah. And I'm at the office. I help. Growing up, I worked in the office, and I mean, it was part of our life. And the funny thing about it is that I did it because it's a family business, and I'm like, yeah, I want to support the family business. I want to work with it, but when I grow up, I don't want to do it. And so me and my brother, who were really close, we both became performers, actors, stage performers.
Okay.
And so that's what we wanted to do. Like we were in musicals and improv shows, and like we did all sorts of performing, and that's what we chose as a career. And we did.
You went to the other side of the spectrum from like accountants.
Completely other side. And so we were off doing our thing, and whenever we were available between jobs or whatever, we would come and help my dad and work in the office, and still we were still part of it, but just that wasn't our focus, our plan. And so my dad had actually given up on passing the family business down. He's like, well, they're not interested. They're doing something else. Then back in, let's see, what was it? 17, in 2017, I really started feeling God say, hey, you're not going to be on stage forever. And I was like, what do you mean? And so I really started to be challenged to reevaluate things. And well, obviously, a lot of changes. I was having kids and family. So, like right now, I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So, um, back in 17, I was just kind of, they were really little and just starting to grow my family. And I was just trying to figure out, okay, well, what's next? If I'm not going to be on stage, what am I going to do? And so I took several years where I said, okay, I'm going to trust God. I'm going to step away from the theater life. I mean, when you think about an actor, I was pretty successful because there's a lot of actors that, you have to have lots of in-between jobs or you're barely making it. And I actually did okay. And I was never wanting for work.
Okay.
So I was very blessed and very grateful for that. So I stepped away and worked at a college for a little bit. And then it's like, you know what? I want to go back and work with my dad. And so I called him and he was like, really? and and he was very excited. My grandfather actually, he worked up until his 90s and then he passed away in 2019. Like
Sorry to hear
still,
that.
it was still very, recent. So there was a lot going on. He passed away. The MLM company went under. There was a lot of change happening. I was feeling God's call and I was like, okay, well, and I also wanted to be closer to family because I lived in Missouri at that time, which was I'm having kids and there's no family nearby. So I wanted to be near family. And so that was also part of it as well.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of factors. And I was like, okay, so 21, I was like, I'm moving back. We're going to restart this thing. I'm going to help work with my dad and we're going to rebuild and regrow. So just very excited about that. And that's kind of how that transition all happened.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that we had that conversation that I thought was very interesting, so I just wanted to not skip that part of your story. And thank you for that. And now going a little bit back into the business side of things, but following sort of like that story. So when you come into the business, you pivoted back from the software, as you said, back to more the accounting side and taxes. How did you go about landing your first set of new clients, right? Not the legacy ones that you might have, hey, they've been with us for 30 years, second generation still with us, right? Like they choose not to change things. How did you go about, landing the first new set of clients after pivoting back, and making the focus of the business real estate and taxes?
Totally. No, that's a great question. And one of the biggest things that people at first, when the transition happened, they're like, wait, you were an actor? And now you're like, that's weird. And I was like, well, I mean, it's not weird to me. I mean, it's in my family. And like numbers and learning was never a problem for me. I mean, that's one of the reasons, like as an actor, I was a lot of times a swing. And if you know what that means you learn a lot of roles. And if somebody is out or sick, you hop in and you do their role. Okay. And so you got to be really able to learn on your feet and learn really fast. And so to me, learning is not a big deal. And so being able to understand and learn concepts is not hard. So I actually went and got my EA and I studied for several months and then I got it and passed on the first try, and there's a lot of people that are like, wow, that's crazy. I'm like, well,
I've been doing this all my life.
It is what it is. So, but anyways, the transition with that. And then one little piece that is interesting that before I answer your question, you have to kind of understand it before I get into that is the goal is to rebuild and do it with my dad and do it for 10 years and then take over, right? Yeah. And that was the goal. I felt like I had plenty of time left. My grandfather worked till he was 90 something and my dad was only 63. But in 21, after 6 months, my dad had a massive stroke and like shouldn't have survived. But then he did survive, but he needs full-time care. Like he can't talk or do things for himself. And so obviously I had to take over like way sooner than I thought. I had to catch all the falling plates. I had to figure out what all of his clients needed, just try to figure everything out. So that was crazy. But it was a very big learning experience for me. And it grew me, I think, in the business side of things a lot faster than I ever would have grown otherwise because I had to. But once the boat stopped rocking and things settled down a little bit and I was like, okay, we're okay. I got it. Then that's when I started to look at, okay, now what am I going to do? And how am I going to get new clients and stuff? And so a lot of that happened because I had a mentor. I think that that's very important for anybody who is either starting their journey or wanting to grow in their journey is having a mentor. That's very important. And so at that time, God brought a mentor exactly at that time into my life that he is an older gentleman that had run his own tax firm and then sold his tax firm and retired because of health reasons, but he was starting to feel better. And he's like, hey, I mean, I've done it all before. I don't want to do it again, but I'll help you do it. And so being able to have him just kind of come walk with me as I'm rebuilding and as I'm figuring it out was huge. And, so his encouragement really to network with people in the area, with different events or groups, was really how I got my first new clients. Back to your question on how I did that, a lot of that came from the influence of my mentor and encouraging me to just get out with other people and business owners in the area. And so for me, that was very easy to do because my background as an actor. That's great. I will get out there in front of people. I will talk to people. I will shake hands and kiss babies and, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that just is natural for me because that's what I did for so long, which is, I think, a tactical advantage that I have because most accountants are very like, I don't want to talk to people, I'm just going to stay in the office and, that's all I need to do. And so I'm very comfortable getting out there, and that started kind of my journey in that. And now I go to real estate investor conferences and I teach classes and different things like that. And that's kind of how I continue to grow our firm and the awareness of what we're doing now. And I still feel like we're very much in the infancy of that because we just rebranded for real estate last year and we're just starting to get our feet in the door in different places like that. The people saying, oh, yeah, and wanting me to come in to those groups of real estate investors and just the feedback that I'm getting has been really positive. And so I'm like, oh, this is a little easier than I thought it would be. And so I'm just excited to see how it grows and where it grows. And really the biggest thing for me is saying, okay, well, that's the easy part for me is getting out there and doing that. The part that I'm learning is the more of like the business management side to scale the growth of that with like my employees and our systems. And so I'm learning a lot in those areas to try to just improve in those areas so that the firm itself can scale in that direction together.
Okay. No, yeah, I understand. Thank you for sharing that. I know that we talked about this the last time. And again, I'm sorry to hear about your dad, but, I think that was definitely a sign, right? That you were able to have those months before that happened with him, which otherwise you wouldn't have had, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just working so close with him. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, because I could have waited to come because I had some other things, but I was like, no, I feel like I need to go now. And that's why it's not a thing that I'm excited that happened, but I'm super grateful that I was able to be here for it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's great that you had like those months, right, being so close with them. And there was one thing from everything that you were saying, that you're doing right now, you're teaching classes, going to events and everything. Like, what is working best for you now in terms of like getting new clients?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I love to learn. So one of the things that when I started to be the business owner, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to learn about that. And so I've been absorbing books and podcasts and videos and all sorts of stuff so that I can just learn what I need to know. And there's so much to learn and know. And you just have to accept that you can't know it and do it all immediately. It's just kind of a process. You have to do one step at a time. And so just always continuing to try to add some more understanding and action to that. And so I think that for me, I lean on my strengths, and my strength is getting out in front of people and talking to people. And so whenever several weeks ago, I was at a real estate investor conference, and I taught a class, and, I'm still kind of feeling this out. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to be, something that people are like pumped about or not. But I taught the class, and then afterwards people were like, this was great. This was great. And we had a booth down in the vendor area, and my employees were like, man, after you taught the class, our booth just got jammed. Like people were just coming. And so
that's awesome. That's so great.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's where I'm finding just the most momentum in that is being a resource or like a positive, like people want somebody to be able to talk in their language,
Yeah.
to be able to understand it. Because there's a lot of times when it gets technical and they're like, I don't know, this zone out, right?
Yeah.
Because I have a background in being able to communicate with people, I'm like, all right, I can communicate this in a way that's engaging and understanding. And that is something that people are excited about because they're like, ooh, when he talked about it, I got it. And it made sense based on my situation over here. And so being able to relate in that way, I think is a big thing. And I'm just finding, and like I said, I'm still discovering. But that's my latest discovery is I need to lean more into that because I think that once I establish that with people, then that's when people are like, okay, I want to work with them because he made sense. And I really learned a lot from that.
That's great. I love how you connect your experience on that part of your life that it's still not gone, right? Because I think that if you grew up with a an idea of what you want to do with your life, like a dream, right? And you were a performer for so many years. That I don't think that ever leaves you. Most people always have that like little, voice in the back of their heads, like, hey, you could have been this, you could have done that, right? And you're actually leaning into that, so that's still part of your life, and I think that's great. I think that, and if it helps, grow the business, scale it, everything, it's even better. And so thank you for that. And just another question. We talked about how you've grown, how you've gotten the clients, what you're doing right now. Now let's go to the other side of the business. What common mistakes have you made in the past, or what common mistakes do you see others making?
Oh man, I mean, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that like accountants and tax people in this industry make is making it more about the work than the client.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think that that's a big thing because we can get in our heads about doing the work and having a good product and doing it correctly and having our strategies that, and all this stuff. But really, it's about the client. It's about the relationship. It's about how you help them, how you make them feel, how you help them understand. And I tell my staff, I'm like, really one of the biggest things is expectations. Do we set expectations, first of all? Because a lot of times there are no expectations set. It's just like, yeah, we're going to do your work. But what are the expectations? People desire that, and then meeting those expectations and exceeding those expectations. And that's really because it's intangible, but that's how they feel about it. And so even if I'm doing the same exact work as the guy down the street, they're gonna feel in their mind that I'm way better because I gave them a good experience, a good feeling. I exceeded their expectations because they had expectations that were communicated, that they felt taken care of. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that I've kind of discovered as I started going down this path is that, we need to do good work. We need to do accurate work. We need to have good strategies. We need to, do all those things, but we need to try to make sure that we are thinking about the person that we're talking to. And so, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things that I've seen in our industry and then experienced myself, and that I'm trying to really promote in my firm is like how we think about things.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I think that, from my clients, from the people that I talk to every day, because I'm having conversations constantly, one of the states, of the industry, and there's different niches and everything, right? So accounting, bookkeeping, taxes, there's a lot of different things. But overall, one of the things that they tell me is that they see clients and even potential clients cost shopping as opposed to value shopping, right? And that's a big problem with a lot of the people in the industry is that they don't know how to communicate what makes them different from others, right? Now they might have, a net promoter score of 8 point something, 9 point something because their clients know, the experience that they're giving them, but they themselves don't know how to communicate that, right? In order to grow their business, in order to get new clients.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I 100% agree with you just from what I've seen and from what people have told me over the last several months.
Yeah. I think that like continuing that thought even a little bit further, as far as mistakes that I know I've made, and I know that a lot of other people make, is being like, oh, well, yeah, we want to help everybody, or we want to accept, we don't want to turn down work or whatever. And being able to come to a place where it's like, no, I want to be able to build my firm the way I want to build it. I want to work with people that I want to work with, and not just because they came in my door or called my office. Trying to be more discerning in that it's more than, there's more to it than having more clients or having more revenue or whatever it is. It's the quality of it. And if you are able to focus on that, then maybe in the short term you feel it a little bit, but in the long term, you'll see massive benefits because you're designing it, and then therefore you provide a better experience, which in the long term will bring you the quality clients with the more revenue. So it's a long-term thought instead of a short-term thought. And I think that's where we all struggle, is short-term is so easy to see and comprehend, but long-term is more amorphous and harder for us to think about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a great point that you're making. Just to, maybe people might want to know as well, one thing that I'm thinking, from everything that we talked about is you came back, right? You pivoted, you're doing all of these things, and that's you, right? You are the one that's going out and doing those things. But in terms of, an investment in the business that might have helped that or something else, but like what's been the best business investment that you've made, so far?
The best business investment. I would say it's probably hiring people and delegating, because I think that's something that a lot of times we also struggle with is being able to say, oh, you go do this. You take care of this client, because we're like, oh, well, I'm going to do, like, they know me, or I can do it better, or, whatever. And so I think that that's really, to me, been the biggest unlock that I continue to try to tell myself to do more of is be able to say, I'm going to hire people around me to say, hey, these are your clients now, or hey, you're going to do this job. And that way it frees me up to be able to lean more into those things that we talked about that I excel at. It's so building the team and using the strengths and not relying all on yourself is a scary thing, but it's probably the biggest unlock.
I agree. I think that there is a big problem when people first start their business of wanting to be the orchestra man. Either sometimes the reality is you don't have the money to invest right into other people. Other times it's just the fact that you think you can't afford it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the times I think it's just also the fact that, hey, this is my baby, this is what I'm doing. Or like I'm the best person for every single job. Just a quick story. One of my business mentors actually. Shout out to Robin, by the way, if you're listening to this. Robin, one of my mentors, he was doing a lot of the things, in the business because he was literally the expert in the business. But not only in his business, but also in the industry. He's actually a thought leader. He's one of the foremost experts in that industry. And so he was trying to do everything. And long story short, once he actually was able to delegate, the operation of the business to his VP, Colin, also shout out to Colin, to listening to this, he was actually able to free a lot of the time for him to build more relationships and actually scale the business. And so that's one of the things, right, that we've talked about over the years, where he says, if I had done it sooner, I would have been able to scale the business sooner. It's just the fact that I wasn't, I was, in that place where I was gauging, the ROI on this versus that, right? On giving him the raise, right, promotion and letting him run the whole operation, right? Versus me. So to your point, I agree 100%.
Yeah. And being okay with mistakes, like that's okay. I make mistakes too, but that's how we learn and we get better. Now you're not going to make that mistake again. And just being able to, and of course, I guess that's something that goes back to what I love anyways, is teaching and coming alongside people and helping them succeed. So giving people an opportunity to grow. And so I get excited about that too.
I love that. Where do you see, the biggest opportunities in your market in the next few years?
Well, I mean, there's a lot changing right now with that big, beautiful tax bill. And so real estate investors are salivating right now because there's like, ooh, they're bringing back some things that are really cool, like bonus depreciation. And there's a couple other really interesting things in there as well. And so people are going to probably lean into being more ready to invest because they've started to slow down because of things phasing out. But as they reenact everything, it may bump up here in the next couple of years.
Okay. And thank you for that. And then just, for your business, what are your growth plans, for the next 1 to 2 years?
Oh, man, that's a good question. For me, it's so funny because I'm a very realist when I think about things, but then, reading all the books about business and everything, talking about having bigger goals. And so I'm like, okay, all right, I have to push myself to have those big goals. Like, okay. So I have in my mind, like realistic goals and then my dream goals.
Okay.
So I still have to have both for my own sanity.
Yeah, of course.
But really, I would love to be able to, in the next 5 years, to grow to, like right now I have 4 people on my team and I'd love to double that and be able to serve a lot more real estate investors. Right now, we are still, like I said, in the infancy. And so we have a lot of legacy clients and we're growing the real estate side of things. But as we grow, I want that to saturate. So in the next 5 years, I want it to be basically 95% of our client base is real estate investors. So that kind of shift taking place of who we are so that becomes all we do. And so that's kind of my biggest goal for the next few years. And then getting to a place where I am able to give client work to super capable staff so that I can really even more lean into what I do with teaching and getting in front of people and being more of that, the face and the communicator and doing a lot more of that, the business side of the business running side of things. That's kind of my goal. Because right now I still do a lot of client work. I do a lot of stuff and have my hand in a lot of different pies. But that's those are my main goals for the next few years is to get to that place. And revenue, I try not to focus as much on that.
Okay.
Because if you do those things, the revenue will come,
Yeah.
But that's,
Okay. Thank you for that. I love that, that you're thinking about it in people's terms and not so much in money terms. Because in the end, if you are able to get to twice the staff that you have right now, it means that you did get more money, right? So in the end, it goes hand in hand. And we're coming to the last part, of our conversation. And this is a funny question that I like asking everyone. So, just bear with me with that. You had a magic wand, that you could just wave and solve, one thing about your business instantly. What would it be?
Magic wand. I think that the magic wand would probably be that we would be able to read clients' minds.
Okay.
There's so many times
That's a good one.
Or it's just like, or put thoughts into clients' minds.
Inception. Yes, let's do Inception. Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, we've tried to communicate, and then they wake up one morning and they're like, oh, wait, like, okay, now you're talking to us. And so a lot of good clients, you don't have to worry about that, but it's surprising how common that can be, where the communication piece, you're like, oh, I feel like I'm trying to communicate. But that's, I guess if I had a magic wand, that'd probably be it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. And, just as the last question for anyone, listening here that might be starting their journey or might be thinking, of starting their own business, what advice would you give, to someone that's in that space, right? Either starting their business or thinking about starting it?
Do it. I mean, it's one of those things, the more that a lot of times we overthink things, especially as accountants. We just think and think and think and think and think. And so one of the things that really started me down the path as a business owner side of the accounting is I have to quit just thinking. I have to just do. Because if I think about it, I'm not going to do. And so it's scary. It's scary at first. And then you start to get a little more comfortable, but it's still scary. But just to do it and be like, what's the worst that can happen? I'll learn something. I can do something different. I just have to do it, because until you start to do it, nothing's going to happen. And I think on top of that, have a mentor, because that way they can encourage you to do it and give you feedback and give you encouragement when it doesn't work. And, there's a positive feedback loop because you have a mentor in that area. And be around the people that do it. That, a lot of times accountants, they wall themselves in their own office and they're an island. Don't be an island. Be around other people. If you need to talk about stuff, call me. Call somebody else down the street that that does the same thing. Be around those people, because if you want to do something or be someone, go hang out with those people that are already where you want to be. That's what I would say.
I love that. What's the saying? That you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? So you want to put yourself in that position. I think that's great. Cliff, thanks so much. This has been an incredible conversation. I've had a lot of fun, both on this call and our last one. But before we wrap up, where can our listeners learn more about you and your work? Where can they connect with you?
Absolutely. We are REI Tax Guys. That's the name of our firm. And on the internet, on website, reitaxguys.com. We also are starting to hopefully build more socials. We have a LinkedIn, we have a Instagram, we have a Facebook, and it's just REI Tax Guys. You can look it up. And we are trying to do more fun things with that. Obviously, with the education piece that I said, I'm just trying to learn the technology side of things. How can I use that to educate, And so I'm going to probably start leaning more into that in the future here. But yeah, we'd love to connect. And if you're going to a real estate event, you might see me there, because I try to frequent those sometimes if I know about them. So yeah. Awesome.
Thank you for that, Cliff. Like I said, a great conversation. Had a lot of fun. And to everyone listening, this was another episode of the Lead Skills Show. Thank you for, watching, listening. And if you guys, like the episode, please like, subscribe, and comment and share as well. You would help us a lot with this, as well as our guests. So thanks so much, Cliff, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Oscar.